Hi everybody. Today we're here to talk about why it's difficult to imagine the demands of being a caregiver if you are not a caregiver, or maybe you are watching a friend or somebody you know go through this caregiving experience and you think, wow, this is just crazy. I'm Pamela D. Wilson. I'm a caregiving expert, advocate, and speaker. Please click below to like and share this video and comment because this helps more caregivers and people interested in health and aging find their way to my YouTube channel. Now, if you've been here before and you've read through some of the comments that show up down below on my videos, you'll see that there's a lot of misinformation, denial about caregiving, denial about how difficult it is, people judging caregivers saying, well, you should do this or you should do that. And rightly so, our life experiences determine our beliefs about what we do and what we should do. And this includes how hard it is to be a caregiver. Now, there's also a lot of amazing, wonderful caregivers who comment below and they share the stress of their stories and what it's like. So I thank those caregivers for doing this and really for providing a realistic picture of what it's like for caregivers day in and day out, year after year. Because many caregivers get into this and they think, oh, it's going to be for a week or 2 weeks, and 3 years, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years later, they are still a caregiver. So where does all this belief come about what it's like to be a caregiver and who's talking to caregivers and who's giving them information? So it's a lot of people, in addition to family and friends, who are a lot of the people who give their experiences, share their experiences with caregivers. It also comes from people like physicians and staff at nursing homes and other healthcare and social care providers, who really, if they haven't been a caregiver, they have no idea of the time and effort that caregivers put in over this whole caregiving journey. So in this video, I'm going to share 2 examples, one for why being a caregiver is so complicated, and the second one is a way for people who are not caregivers, or maybe you're watching somebody in your family go through this experience, and you're thinking, how on earth can I help this person if I can't be involved? And, you know, maybe I really don't understand what's going on. So the first one is to recognize that if you are this caregiver, or even if you're the person who's having a lot of health issues, to realize that your experiences, and regardless of how much you know or how long you've been doing this, there are going to be some gaps. It's impossible to know everything in a caregiving situation unless really this is, you know, something that you've done for 20 or 30 years and you've done it for multiple people and you have a lot of experience. So it's just hard, right? So that being said, what you also want to realize is that if you are this caregiver, day in, day out, month after month, year after year, you have a lot of knowledge about the person that you care for, about their behaviors and their habits and their activities and what they can do and what they can't do. And you may have also seen their health, you know, be way up here one day and it's just slowly declining and declining and declining, and you're trying to figure out what on earth is going on. So while all this is going on, the reality is that you're the one who's doing this day-to-day work. There are people out there who want to give you their advice and their opinions and accept that and appreciate it, right? Because they're giving you their opinions because they care, even though they're not living in your shoes day to day, and they may not know what you're going through. So keeping that in mind, this is why it is so important, if you are this caregiver, to realize that maybe there is something that you don't know. Maybe there is something that someone has not told you. And why it's important to seek information. You're here watching this video, right? To seek information, to become more educated, and to evaluate the options that you have so that you can make really good decisions. This can help you then recognize those areas where I may not have enough information about this. Maybe I got to seek more. Maybe I need to talk to an elder care expert or a consultant to fill these knowledge gaps. Now, I'm saying this, and you may have found this video at 2 in the morning or 7 in the evening or, 3 in the afternoon. And if you haven't been here before, you may know absolutely nothing about me except I'm this talking head on this video. So go to my website, PamelaDWilson.com. You will see that I have more than 20 years of caregiving experience, taking care of the elderly and caregivers in a wide variety of roles. And I have actually lived in your shoes 24/7 for more than 20 years. So I do understand that caregiving can be this absolutely wonderful, amazing blessing and experience. I also understand the not so good side. So here's an example of where caregivers have gaps. Let's say that your parent or a spouse or somebody else has been, pretty healthy most of their lives. Maybe they've had a few health issues. Maybe, an operation here or there, or they've been sick and they recovered from it. But now they're older and recently they had either a health issue, an accident, maybe they had a fall, and that health incident means that they're not really bouncing back as quickly as they used to. And so you're thinking, wow, this is kind of different because mom or dad used to come back from this and it seems like they're really struggling. So you may be in this period of wondering, well, what do I do? Maybe they were in the hospital and now they're in a nursing home for rehab and you're thinking, well, do I keep them in the nursing home? Do I move them to assisted living? Can they go back home? Will they be able to live independently? Now, these are really big decisions, which may seem to be primarily about, well, where does mom or dad live? Where does my spouse live? Who is going to be that caregiver? So you're thinking, well, how do I work this out? And then on top of that, you've got the emotional stress about how you feel and the pressure that you have because you're worried about making the right decision. So let me add the gap to this. So you're watching a loved one's health decline. You're not sure what's going on. And the thing that most caregivers don't consider, because we as caregivers don't want to admit that the health of our loved ones is getting worse, and maybe it's to a point where it's not fixable. Maybe it is not going to get better. And we don't want to think about loved ones passing away or dying or leaving this life because we love them and we want them to stay with us, right? This was a situation in my own family with my mother. My mother had so many health issues and all of us children were thinking, she's going to live forever. I honestly don't know what we were thinking because that is not what happened, and you can read about that on my website in my story. But a lot of family members, even if somebody's 90 or 95, they think, what if mom or dad lives for another 10 or 12 years? Well, honestly, if you look at their medical conditions and you talk to somebody about it, that's probably pretty unlikely. So when you're looking at mom or dad had an accident, spouse had an accident, what do I do for their care? Where do they live? You've got to start looking at their health conditions and the medications they take and the problems that they have. And you want to face the hard reality that, this may not get any better. And one little accident over here could cause a whole bunch of other things over here to make it difficult. Now, you as the caregiver want to be helpful, right? So you keep doing more and more things and adding more and more into your day, which is taking away from your life over here in your family and your friends and your job. So what happens is caregivers will take advice, by somebody who says, oh, leave your parent in a nursing home, or maybe assisted living is good, or, gosh, you should take them and care for them at home because that is what families and people do. Well, maybe not in your situation, maybe in their situation. So again, you know more about what the daily life is, the requirements of your parents, their habits, their behaviors, all of that. You're the only one that can make this decision. So I've talked to a lot of caregivers, and I still do in my consultations, who don't have the insight to really understand the seriousness of a health condition, even how, memory loss is going to progress if that is a diagnosis. And then there's the complexity of physical weakness and how an accident or somebody who sits all day and doesn't move around, how that can affect their health today and 6 months from now and a year from now. So there's a lot of considerations outside of this immediate decision of where does mom and dad live or my spouse live and who's going to be that caregiver. So I'll give you a short answer and a potential solution for that, because I always believe in talking about problems and giving solutions. So on my website, there's an online course called How to Care for Aging Parents, and it really is how to care for anybody, including yourself. It's 60 hours of my experience and knowledge that I have gained over the past 20 years managing care for the elderly and the disabled. So more than likely, there's a lot of answers there that can help you in your caregiving situation today, because answering any of these questions is not easy. And it's important to look at all of the little details to make sure that you're not missing something that causes a problem either today or 6 months or 12 months, because as this caregiver, you're in this for the long run. Unless your loved one passes away, it's not going to end tomorrow. So let's go to the other side of this question, which is number 2 for why it's difficult to imagine the demands of being a caregiver. For anyone who may be in your family watching you do all this and saying, hey, I can't help, I can't be involved, or a friend, or even somebody who comes across this video and they're saying, well, you know, you have to take care of your parent at home. That's what families do. That's what good families do. Well, maybe not. Because it's simple for them to give their opinions and judge because they're not doing the work. You're the caregiver doing the work. Now, you caregivers might be thinking, well, all these other people, they're judgmental, they don't know what's going on, they don't want to help me, I'm stuck where I am. So here's the thing, have them watch this video. If these people who are watching from out here will get involved, even for just a short period of time, they may be able to really help a lot. So let me give you an example for siblings and people who don't help. If you are this non-caregiving family member, or maybe you're involved just a little bit, or maybe you live 1,000 miles away, and you think everything's fine, or you're hearing your sibling and they're complaining all the time, and you're thinking, oh, it can't possibly be that bad, or you have made suggestions to your caregiver sibling to get some help and they're refusing. Here's one of the things that you can do, and it's going to take a bit of your time, but go visit your parents or go visit the person who needs care and stay there for a week or 2 weeks. Give the caregiver a little vacation, give them a little time off so that you can go in and really see and evaluate what on earth is going on. What's the day-to-day life like? What do my parents need? Maybe even take them to a doctor appointment so you can talk to the doctor and find out what they need. Then look at the whole situation and the toll that this caregiving has taken on your sibling, who probably volunteered to be that caregiver and may still want to be the caregiver, but their health is failing. Their marriage is in trouble. They've given up their job. They have no income. You know, they're trading a lot of their life to do this because they feel like they have to because nobody else is stepping in, or they feel this duty or responsibility. So this experience of going to be that caregiver for a week or 2 weeks will give you an idea of whether, you know, this is real or not real. And then looking at it from the outside, how would you change this situation? And some of you may be thinking, hey, I wouldn't change it at all. I don't want to get involved. God bless my brother or sister for doing this. Happy for them, right? But yet you're the one who has to hear them complain, and maybe your parents call and maybe they complain. So it's probably not a perfect situation. So if you can't be that caregiver, what you can do is go in and give a perspective by becoming involved for a short period of time and then making some recommendations. And maybe that recommendation is, maybe my brother or sister who is the caregiver shouldn't be the caregiver anymore. Maybe we need to find a different solution for my parents or for one of my parents so that the healthy parent can go on with their life, right? These are hard conversations to have. They're hard decisions to make. Nobody wants to make them. Somebody has to step up. Somebody has to advocate. And your parents may be in a position where they can express what they want, but they're very reliant on everybody else to help because physically and mentally they cannot make those decisions and they can't put a lot of effort in because honestly they just don't feel good. So you may have to be the one who says to your brother or sister, hey, you know what? I get it. I came for a week or two. I realize this is a miserable situation for you. Mom and dad need more care. Let's look at our options. This is the list. What would you like to do? And hopefully that caregiver will say, wow, finally some recognition that there's a problem. Now, a lot of caregivers may not want to change because they've been in these situations for years. And it's kind of like being married, right? Except you're married to a parent or you're married to this caregiving situation. And so to make a change can be emotionally traumatic. A parent and their caregiver can become emotionally dependent on each other. And if your brother or sister has moved into their household and they've given up a lot of their life, it can be really hard to go back out and get a job and get a life and pay your own rent. I mean, you've seen how hard it is to manage just for yourself. Imagine, being in this bubble of caregiving and having to come back out and start life over again. That's really hard to do, and it can be super scary for people. So these are kind of two very contrasting examples of why the demands of caregiving are way more than anybody ever imagined. It's, the day-to-day of what do you do with a parent's care? And then if you're watching on the outside, how can you help instead of judging? The bottom line is the health of this person who needs care, especially if they're older, unfortunately is not going to get better. They're not like, a 5-year-old who has a whole life in front of them and they're healthy and everything's good. When a person gets to be a certain age, whether it's 55 or 65 or 75 or 85 or 95, right? Stuff happens, and this is just part of life. So as the caregiver or as the person watching in from the outside, knowledge is power. Support is power. The more that you realize that you don't know to go get that education, the more control you can have over your situation. And honestly, when you're a caregiver, it is so hard to know what you don't know. So hard. So regardless of the situation, if you're the caregiver or on the outside, support and help exists if you're willing to realize that support and help exists and to go search for it. It's also important to realize that even though you may be this caregiver who's doing everything, you may think that your siblings are crazy for telling you to get out and to get help. And maybe it's because they're seeing the forest through the trees. They're seeing your health decline. They're seeing the stress that is placed on you from the situation. And if you're that person, sometimes you really cannot see it because you're in it day to day. You are so deep in caregiving. Because all you do is live and sleep and breathe caregiving responsibilities. In order for caregivers sometimes to get a perspective of the impact of this situation on their lives, you got to get out. You got to get out of this situation and get out of your brain and get out of your routine. So that idea of taking a week off or 2 weeks off, whether it's your brother or sister coming to take care of your parents, whether you can temporarily put your parents in a respite situation, you have to get away for a week or two to get a really clear picture of what on earth is going on. And if you have to consult a caregiving expert like myself or somebody else, do that just to give you a different perspective, because this truly can be a struggle to make a different decision about caregiving or care for your parents if your parents have programmed you to be this caregiver all of your life, or if the expectation in your family or your culture is that you will do this, but it's destroying your life and your health. So as that caregiver, you have to think about, is it time to break out of all of these expectations about my life and what I should do and make a plan for life outside of caregiving? Because truly the demands of caregiving are unimaginable until you find yourself in this situation. And there are so many caregivers who are lost. They're seeking hope, help, and support because they don't know what to do. And there's a lot of guilt involved in stepping away from something that you feel is your responsibility or something that you've done for a long time. So I thank you all for being here. Again, please like, follow, comment below so that caregivers and other people in these situations who are looking for hope, help, and support can find it. Also, there's a lot of help on my website. It's PamelaDWilson.com. There you will find my caregiving blog, my book, The Caregiving Trap, my podcast, The Caring Generation, a lot of hope, help, and support, and ways to contact me if you're looking for a personal consultation. Thanks for being here. I'll see you all again soon in another video.